The other thing that's really good, and this is universal for any character, is that this is 0 on block. So when your opponent blocks this, she returns back to the neutral. And that's good because that's a knowledge check. How's everybody doing? This is a Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate Mileena's Beginner's Guide, going over some of her important base normal single hitting attacks. I will be making an additional 1 or 2 videos going over some of her key base strings, as well as probably a throw setup guide, very similar to my Shiva throw setup guide that I did. I don't really remember how long ago. If you guys like these Mileena guides, if you like Mortal Kombat in general, Tekken 7, beginner guides, overview and breakdowns, highlight reel videos, things like that, please consider liking, subscribing. All support is greatly appreciated and it definitely helps my channel a lot. All right, let's jump into it. All right, the first move we're going to talk about is her ForwardOne, which is a high attack that comes out in I9. So the starter frames is 9 frames, so that's pretty fast. It is 0 on block, 0 on flawless block, and plus 14 on hit. Now, the good thing is that a character flaw for Mileena, for a lot of her core moves, is that she doesn't have good range. Like, she'll block something, go to punish with her standing one or back one, and it'll whiff. This helps mitigate that. It helps give her a little bit more balance because her ForwardOne, I'm showing you here, actually has decent range, and it comes out in 9 frames. So there's a lot of cases that you will probably catch your opponent off guard by surprising a neutral land this and maybe do a quick follow-up combo or something like that. The other thing that's really good, and this is universal for any character, is that this is 0 on block. So when your opponent blocks this, she returns back to the neutral. And that's good because that's a knowledge check. A lot of times when you watch frame data, people will tell you something is simple, and this is very accurate for the most part. If you're blocked, it's not your turn. If it's hit, it's your turn. So in this case where Scorpion blocks it and then he goes to do his 4-3, doesn't matter because she's 0 on block. I9 will be out his 13 frame 4-3, and she can catch him into a special cancel, special move or whatever, and then get like a launch or a mini combo. That's powerful. That's very powerful because that means that on block is still pretty much advantageous for you, especially if your opponent is not aware that it's 0 on block. Okay, I've already shown you in the video that you can cancel this into a special move. So you can special cancel the ForwardOne. This is plus 14 on hit, as I said earlier. And those are pretty good frames you can have on hit. And I'm showing you here, if you have your spacing down, you can do ForwardOne into stagger pressure into her back one. But I'm showing you here, again, as I said, standing one and back one, they don't have the best range. So if you're spacing your opponent out and you do ForwardOne, and then you are too far away and you do back one, it will whiff, and it could basically cause you to get punished for that. So I want you guys to be aware of that. Last thing I'm showing you is that, unfortunately, ForwardOne is a high attack, and your opponent can duck and launch you for that. That is a core weakness of that attack. So keep that in mind, that if you space your opponent out and you do ForwardOne and they read it, they can duck and launch you or down to crush and blow you. ForwardTwo is a low attack that comes out in I-17. It is -7 on block, -7 on flawless block, and +7 on hit. Kind of like ForwardOne, it complements Mileena a little bit simply because it actually has some pretty decent range. Honestly, the range I think is a little bit better than what ForwardOne is. Honestly, I think ForwardTwo has a little bit better range than ForwardOne for what I'm showing you right here. Unlike ForwardOne though, it's I-17, so that's pretty slow. If your opponent even reads this, there's a good chance that they have a fast enough move or a spacing move that's a fast enough attack mid or something, they can interrupt you before this even comes out. This move is attached to a string that has a crushing blow associated with it. I'm not gonna talk about that. I have a guide going over her crushing blows that's gotten really good feedback. Definitely check that out. On block, this is -7 like I said. However, even though Scorpion's standing one is 7 frames, you see I'm having a very hard time punishing it. I was never able to punish it in practice. And I think for the most part, you're not gonna get punished for this move. So I wouldn't really worry about that. On ForwardTwo can also special cancel into her special move. So you can do ForwardTwo just like ForwardOne and cancel into her special moves. And that's actually pretty good. All right, next move we're gonna talk about is her BackTwo, which is an overhead attack that comes out in I-25. It is -6 on block, -11 on flawless block, and it knocks down on hit. And before we get into the details of this move really fast, I just want to clarify something. I've had plenty of people ask me, why do some characters have overhead attacks, singular overhead attacks in their move, but every character has a hop attack? And that's an overhead attack, so why not just always use the hop attack? And there are pros and cons to using hop attacks over the singular overhead attack sometimes. In this case, the hop attacks for Mileena are much faster than her BackTwo, which are overhead, but I'm showing you examples here that both of her hop attacks are unsafe on block, whereas her BackTwo is -6 on regular block. If you land this attack on hit, you get a knockdown, and it actually sets up some decent spacing if you want to zone with Mileena. So if you actually want to play her a zoning style, this attack is actually not a bad attack to go for. Again, as I said earlier, this is -6 on block, so if your opponent blocks this as a regular block, you are safe on block. That makes it better than a hop attack from that perspective. But if you're playing an opponent that has good skills and can flawless block, this is punishable on flawless block. So definitely keep that in mind if you're playing an opponent that actually has that type of execution. This is I-25, so very slow. So in some cases, some people may be able to read you and just interrupt this attack. Keep that in mind. This attack has good range, which also makes it better than the hop attacks, as you have to be really close with the hop attacks. So for example, I'm doing a knockdown here, and you can see here that I allowed the get up attack to whiff, and I still was able to land the BackTwo as a whiff punish, which is very good. Okay, following up to the next attack is her BackFour, which is a low attack that comes out at I-12. It is -5 on block, -10 on flawless block, and a knockdown on hit. Now, one thing I love about this attack is that when you knock your opponent down on hit, you're right on top of your opponent. And that's good, again, because, you know, range issues. So her 1-1 lands right there, her back 1-1 lands right there. I think that's really good. Something else is that because it's a 2-hit attack, you do run, well, your opponent runs the risk of letting go of block too soon and getting hit by the second hit, which is pretty good. Unfortunately, if you're looking at the screen here, you also see one of her, you know, common issues is the range, and BackFour doesn't have the best range, unfortunately. On block, it is safe on block, but as I said, on flawless block, it is -10. So if your opponent flawless blocks this, they can punish you. One other thing that I think is pretty cool, again, it's just because it's a 2-hit attack. If you do BackFour and your opponent does one of the flawless blocks, like built-in flawless blocks attack, like up 2 or up 3, if the attack comes out too slow, as I just showed you there, the second hit may still clip and stop the attack from coming out, which that's kind of cool. So I like the fact that it is a 2-hit attack. Finishing this off, we're going to talk about one of her down posts, which is her DownOne, which comes out in I-7. It is -6 on block, -6 on flawless block, and +13 on hit. And this is typically what I like to go for. There are certain situations where the DownOne I'm showing you obviously can whiff, and I prefer to do her down 3 just based on range, but most of the time I prefer to do her DownOne. It's faster, better frames on block, and it is, like I said, -6 on block, so it is definitely safe on block. There are 3 moves I typically like to gel from her DownOne on hit into, and that is her DownOne into her 1-1, because that startup string is I-8, her DownOne into her ForwardOne, which we talked about earlier in the video, which is the fast advancing high attack coming out at I-9, or her DownOne on hit gelling into her back 1-1 string, which has an I-10 startup. Be careful if you want to do 1-1 or ForwardOne, because sometimes with weird funky animations in this game, you may end up getting low profile. That is the end of my Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate Mileena's Beginner's Guide, going over some of her important base moves. If you guys like the content, please consider liking and subscribing. As always, all support is greatly appreciated. You guys, please go over and check me out on Instagram if you guys like Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Dead by Daylight, cool pictures, discussion posts, and artwork. Consider following me on Instagram as well. This is Asset Light. You guys take care.